you know what? I'll just say this. The grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned.
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
Yeah.
am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope that you're having a really good day so far. If you are new here, my name is Taylor. I come to you from Baltimore City, Maryland, and here on my YouTube channel, I feature content that is generally focused on knitting and spinning. And in today's episode of what I call the Thread to Mend podcast, I thought we would just sit down and knit together for a moment. I have been busy spinning. I've not been knitting much this week, so I don't have any new knitting content to share with you all. I do like to kind of keep this weekly upload to be a bit of a diary, a little bit of a sit and chat with me about what I've been making. And I generally share with you all the things that I am observing as I continue to make things, the things that I am learning constantly, and just the general what I've been up to. And what I have been up to is I've been, where did I put it? I think it's right here. I have been spinning yarn every week. If you are not new to my channel, you already know that I have been spinning a skein of yarn every week the last 5 out of 6 weeks. And I finished my second skein of this dark chocolate brown cormo cross fleece. I like to spin yarn from raw fleeces. It's something that I started doing more than a few years ago now. I want to guess I might have started around like 2018. I could be wrong. I don't really track years. I just track how often I do it. So I try to stay consistent because that is the only way to really develop a skill. I've spun another skein of the same thing I basically showed you in last week's video. So it's not all that new, it's not all that exciting, but it is soft, it is squishy, and I'm continuing to, well, here's the thing. In years past, up until the last 6 weeks, I had always spun all of my yarn on the narrowest whirl. I want to say on my Kromsky minstrel spinning wheel, that's a 16:1 ratio. And I decided that because I wanted to spin a little bit heavier yarn, I was spinning a very light, standard sort of fingering weight type of yarn. I wanted to spin something a little heavier because I do like knitting projects with a little bit more of an instant gratification. So I wanted to spin yarn a little heavier, and I went up a whirl size to the 12:1, and I'm adapting to the 12:1 ratio on my spinning wheel. And the previous few skeins of yarn I recently spun, those were more of a worsted weight. So I spun a 2-ply worsted weight yarn on that 12:1 ratio, and I'm now drafting a little bit. I'm pre-drafting a lot more, and I'm spinning a slightly thinner yarn. So it's, I think, about a true DK, and I'm really happy with it, even though my goal has been to spin a skein of yarn every week until Maryland Sheep and Wool. I might have to find a little bit of a balance because I haven't been knitting. I don't have the time to knit when I'm spinning for a couple hours a few nights a week, and I do want to knit with my yarn as soon as it's spun so that I can learn from the experience of knitting with it. I feel like I do learn a lot about my spinning by knitting my spun yarn. So right now I have planned to knit with my most recent sweater. I say sweater because it's not really a sweater, it's more of a t-shirt quantity. It could be a sweater quantity, I'm not sure. It's a little shy for my size, but I am planning to knit the Celeste Tee with my more recent sweater spin. And then this, I'm thinking I'm gonna get another skein or 2 out of what I have left. And I have no plans yet for this sweater quantity of yarn. So once those 2 skeins are spun, then I'm going to be 2 sweater quantities behind. So I'm thinking that what I might do, for a few reasons, and I do like the goal of spinning a skein every week. I feel like it really has helped me truly develop a better strategy towards spinning and better time management for spinning. And I've gotten a lot out of this challenge so far, and I do recommend it. I have not yet checked the questions that you all have left for me in quite a while, so I thought maybe we should catch up on what questions you might have. And if you're not aware, I do have in the description box below a link to a Google form that you can fill out with anything you would like me to talk about here on my YouTube channel. I have had a request or two come through that forum about scheduling interviews. I don't really do interviews any longer. I just feel like it's really taxing on my time constraints. Like I really just don't have much more to say than what I have here on my channel. But if you ever have any questions that you want me to answer here, I'm happy to answer them. A little about me. I'm trying to find this form really quick. I work full time. I am a staff accountant, and you know, I commute to work. I work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then when I can, I knit at night. I mostly spin these days, and on Saturdays I record my YouTube video to post on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that is about all I have time for. Wow.
Wow.
I have a lot of catching up to do. Okay, so let's see here. Do you have a test knitter list, or where do you post for test knitters? Thanks in advance. That's a great question. And if I were more organized and a better knitwear designer, I would have that information out there in the world. I pretty much, because I publish patterns so infrequently, and I guess I'm new to design, I pretty much just announce on my YouTube channel here when I have a pattern ready for testing. I put a link to a forum in the description box of that video, and I then reach out to people through email about testing. I need to get back into this. In fact, I think that I might devote this weekend to wrapping up this sleeve and getting those instructions written so that I can hopefully get the pattern finalized and reviewed and photographed by maybe next week. I don't know. I'll put the forum though in the description box below if you're interested in testing this, and I will review this pattern as soon as it's done here on my channel and talk about all of the nitty-gritty details. This is my goal for this week, and we're going to talk about knitting and spinning goals in a moment. But I do want to thank you, Vivian, for asking that question. Lisa asks, I do not know if you've answered this before, though I'm wondering how long it took for you to feel confident to do color work. I have 2 good patterns and want to cast them on, and then I get in my head too much and avoid. Any advice on how to move forward with getting brave enough to tackle these patterns? I have to say, I avoid projects too. And the very simple answer might be to swatch, although I think a lot of colorwork patterns will have you swatch and stockinette to get gauge, because sometimes the majority of the pattern is stockinette. So I don't know if that applies to the patterns you're thinking about. But what I would recommend doing, and I don't know if this is a recommendation as much as it is just what I tend to do. But when I'm in that situation, what I tend to do is everything else first. So, for instance, this morning, it's Saturday, I woke up at 7 a.m. and I thought, I'm just going to stay up. And I did everything else first. I folded laundry, I processed more laundry, I gathered all of the dishes and filled the dishwasher, I cleaned the counters and the sink and the coffee. I made the coffee, I drank the coffee, I made the coffee, I did everything first. And that is something that I do when I'm avoiding my knitting, But I would allow yourself to do everything first, but then decide, okay, now I'm going to sit in my chair with my beverage and I'm going to do the thing. And right now I'm going to do the thing because I've already done everything first and it's time that I now do the thing. My simple short answer is to just do it and you'll be glad that you did. I've never sat down with intention to knit and regretted it. So, I hope that I gave you license to just do it. But in terms of feeling confident, I think that confidence just comes with experience and you just have to do it to gain a little experience. And like, you're gonna maybe you won't like it. I don't know. I don't know what kind of knitter you are. Are you a tight knitter? Are you a loose knitter? Just, knit your swatch and then start with the beginning of the instructions and just take it one step at a time. You can do this. I believe in you. The pattern is written for a reason. It's to guide you. It will help you through. But if you have any advice about color work, or if I have any advice about knitting color work, it's just to hold your main color to one side and your contrast color to another, and to just remain consistent throughout. So if you're like me and you hold your yarn in your left hand and you don't switch between right and left hands, I always hold my main color to the left and my contrast color to the right of that, and I never deviate from that order, no matter what. So that's my advice to you as you begin your color work journey. Stay consistent with whatever way you hold it. Just stay consistent and you will be fine. Also, be mindful to kind of stretch out your work as you work, because you don't want to hold the contrast color too tightly. I know you didn't ask for advice, but that's my advice to you. And Godspeed, Lisa. I wish you luck. Teresa asks, whatever was the song you played at the end of this week's episode? It was awesome. Longtime viewer. You were so fun. Love your palette and style. Keep on being your awesome self. Thank you, Teresa. I love that. And I just, it didn't occur to me because it takes me so much time to edit my videos. I have a very awkward cadence of speaking and I'm at a loss of words so much of the time. I make these little clicks and these clacks with my mouth and with my retainers in. It's like hard to speak sometimes. So I wish I could be one of those YouTube channels that just turns on the camera and talks all day long, hits end and posts it online. I envy the people out there that are capable of providing coherent sentences. I am not that person, and so I get so wrapped up in editing and just modifying like 2 sentences to my video description that I copy and paste into the body of my video. I totally forget to put the music details in my video. A lot of times that is last minute also. I'm just trying to wrap things up and get them online. So I'm going to be more mindful to do that in the future. And it looks like you left this comment on the 12th of February. So I will go back to that video and I will add that information into the description box of that video and future videos so that y'all know what music is on here. Now I do pay for using like copyright free music, so whether I acknowledge, I think, the creator of that music or not, which I should, but whether I do or not, they get paid for it. So I'm not, I don't think I'm doing anything wholly unethical. I don't know, but I'm a little negligent in communicating. Sometimes I apologize. Laura writes, hi Taylor, I love the nuances you explore when talking about yarn and fit and color. I'm wondering if you could talk about round yoke sweaters / colorwork sweaters. I know that a raglan fits me well and the round yokes just don't. They seem bouncy and bulky and puff out at the top chest area, and I have to pull it down to look and sit nicely. Can you explain why? Do I need a looser gauge? Do I need a larger size? Do I need different proportions, like fewer stitches around? Thanks for any insight. I feel you, Laura, and I ask myself the same questions all of the time. when I'm scrolling through Instagram, sometimes I stumble across a really lovely yoke sweater and the person wearing it loves it, and I love that for them. But when I look at it, I think, oh, it's doing that thing that happens all the time where it bunches and it just feels wrong to me. Like, I don't love it. And I'm a little hypercritical. I'm sorry. It's just baked into me at birth. So I think that what we're getting at in terms of that slightly awkward fit to a yoke sweater is just kind of inherent to the proportions of increasing. I think one of the reasons why I like the fit of a raglan, and I'm guessing you like the fit of a raglan shape, is there's this constant increasing. So no matter where you are, you feel like you kind of have enough space for, I think, the width of the shoulders. I don't know if I have particularly broad shoulders, but I think that I have broader than some. And I do notice that it's the women with narrower shoulders and maybe a larger bust or larger bust than myself, not particularly large bust, but standard bust, narrower shoulders. It seems like those are the body types that really fit a yoke sweater well without that sort of discomfort in the way it sits on the shoulders. I only know my own experience. I'm actually wearing a, it's a coincidence really, I'm wearing a yoke top-down sweater that I love the fit of. I love the fit of my Woolen Honey. This is a design by Andrea Mowry that I did modify slightly, and I'll explain to you exactly why I love the fit of this sweater. It, you can tell, has kind of a deep yoke. I think that I knit the small size, so not the smallest size, but the second size. And I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly what that measure is, but my bust for reference is 32 inches. And you can see that the yoke fits quite deep on my frame. And I did not modify the upper arm sleeves. I cannot recall the instructions for the sleeves, but I do know that I did not decrease for a short while at all in the sleeve, and then I did a bit of a rapid decrease after the elbow because I do like a little extra room for my elbow. I don't enjoy the feel of a loose sweater that has a very narrow elbow. It just feels a little too constrictive for me. So I like an elbow that I can really bend into and not blow out. So once I pass the elbow, I introduce to a lot of my sweaters, I typically modify my sweater sleeves. I will introduce decreases after the elbow. But the main modification that I made to this sweater that I do recommend, I love this pattern. It's a very boxy design. So that I had a yoke that fit my upper body really well and the way I like to wear a sweater. It almost feels like a dolman-esque type of sleeve because I introduced decreases all along the side body. If I were you and I were planning to knit another yoke sweater, I would go up a size, and then once you split for the sleeves and you're just working the body, I would then modify the sweater to taper inward towards the waist. Now, I know not everyone likes that style of fit, and I don't even have any clue what your bust to waist ratio is, but if you were knitting yourself in a larger size yoke, it'll probably sit on your shoulders a little bit better than the standard size for your fit, and then adding decreases so that the body doesn't fit you in a very large way. I knew that if I were to knit this sweater as it was written, it would have been a little too drafty and a little too wide. If you did knit a yoke sweater at a larger size, go ahead and take your waist measurement of how you want the bottom of your sweater to fit. Maybe you have a sweater that you really like the way it hugs around your waist. Lay it flat, measure it across, multiply that by 2 for the circumference. And then once you know the circumference of the bottom of the sweater that you want, take the circumference of the yoke once you've split for the sleeves and then join the front and the back. Take that, find the difference between that and the bottom hem, and then determine, okay, what's the difference there? And then find, based on your gauge, how many stitches you need to decrease in total. Figure out how many inches you need to knit until you reach the bottom hem. In most instances, you're going to decrease 4 stitches in a decrease round. That's 1 on each side of each side marker. So you mark the 2 sides, you decrease on each side of each side. That's 4 stitches. Then say you have 8 inches to knit between here and here, and you have to decrease by 20 stitches. Well, if you're decreasing 4 stitches a decrease round, that's 5 rounds that you want to decrease. And then you want to determine how frequently you need to do a decrease round between 8 inches 5 times. So let's say that you knit, I don't know, 8 rounds every inch. You have 8 inches to knit. 8 times 8 is, I think, 64. Then you have 5 decrease rounds you need to incorporate within 64 rows, which would be about, I don't know, 13? Let's go with 13. So you would knit 12 rounds even, do a decrease round on the 13th round. Knit 12 rows even, do a decrease round. That's the general technique I use. I hope that was helpful. Wow, I went on and on and on. I don't even know if that's going to make sense, but I hope it did. Judy says, no question, but I knit a sweater using Elsa wool and I really like how soft it is. Thanks for mentioning this yarn. Judy, you are so welcome. I love Elsa wool yarns. I love that you kind of know where the wool is from and where it's milled and how it got to you. That's the major reason why I started spinning my own yarn, is I just wanted to know where it came from and how it was produced and what went into manufacturing it, which was mostly within my own hands. And I love the way that Elsa wool is very much devoted to that sort of place-based method of Canadian grown and processed yarns. So wonderful yarn, highly recommend it. If you've never checked out Elsa wool, do, because you're missing out. And they have woolen spun, they have worsted spun. If you're in Canada, it's likely very accessible to you. If you're in the US, you are getting it at an even better price, which is very, very fair for what it is. I would say it's one of the most affordable luxury yarns out on the market, and you can get it in all kinds of natural colors. Melissa says, hi Taylor, I love your videos. Thank you, Melissa. I love you watching. I'm curious about your raw fleece buying process. Do you have a preferred breed? Where do you purchase them? How much would one expect to pay for a raw fleece? Anything else I should know before I dive in and purchase one? Thank you. Well, those are great questions, Melissa. Do you have a preferred breed? I do. Like many people, cormo is my preferred breed for a few reasons. One, it's a fine wool. So in general, I'm shopping for fine wools. I do dabble with medium wools, and I've grown to appreciate medium wools more than I did in the beginning. I feel that medium wools can be similarly soft, not quite as soft, but far more easy to process in terms of scouring and washing and combing. And to spin a medium wool is a dream. So I would not discount medium wools in the slightest. In fact, a lot of Cordale fleeces are medium grade, less fine than cormo, but I will shop for Cordale, I will shop for cormo, I will shop for merino. Cormo, because of the staple length, it is a breed of sheep that was developed from the merino and the Leicester long wool, I think. So the long wool with the long staple and that little wider crimp to the fiber, combined with that fine high crimp fiber. So it's like the best of both worlds. It has a long staple, fine fiber, nice, good sort of crimp to it. And I love a cormo fiber, but I will shop for any kind of cross. I love crossbreed fleeces because you kind of get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's just like this constant exploration of textile, like textural feel. And I very much love to purchase natural color fleeces because I'm not a dyer. In my heart of hearts, I'm not a dyer. I do dye yarn and fiber, and I have done a lot of it in past videos. In previous years, I've done a lot of natural dyeing. But it's not my favorite thing to do. And if I can get colored yarn at the end of the day by just spinning fiber, then I'm happy. I've only purchased fleeces at the local fleece festivals, like wool festivals. They will have fleece for sale. And I'm very lucky to live in Maryland, where we have, I think, the largest on the East Coast every May. So I buy fleece at Maryland Sheep and Wool in May and New York State Sheep and Wool in October. So I go to my local wool festivals, semi-local wool festivals. There are other festivals that I've never attended, but I'm sure have fleece for sale. If I were not proximal to a local festival, I would go out of my way to travel to one and hope that I find something good. And then either through that venue or through a reputable source, I would maybe consider buying one online. But I would strongly encourage you to hesitate before buying a fleece sight unseen, because there are a lot of things that could be wrong with that raw material that you wouldn't know to recognize on your own, especially not looking at it in person. So how much should one expect to pay for a raw fleece? It really depends on the qualities of the fleece. If it's very clean and has a really nice long staple and not a lot of felting to the tips of it, and it's in good shape, it is shorn in a way that there's not a lot of second cuts and all of the fibers are consistent, I would say a really good quality fleece, I try to spend about $100 or less if I can. And that really depends on how much weight that you're bringing home. At some festivals, like at New York State Sheep and Wool, I noticed that the fleeces are skirted a little more heavily than at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, where you're getting a lot more of the fleece bagged up, like you're getting a couple extra pounds more of fleece. But it's up to you to decide whether you're going to use it all or not. A large breed of sheep's fleece is going to give you, like a cormo, merino, Cordale, that's going to give you about 8 to 10 pounds of fiber. And that might be skirted to something closer to 6, 7, 8 pounds in total. So depending on the way it's skirted, it'll be priced differently per pound. But ultimately, I try to pay between $85 to $100, maybe $120 a fleece. And if you think about it, you're getting about 2 sweaters out of that. So relatively, if you're not including the expense of a wheel or a spindle or whatever, it's kind of affordable compared to finished yarn, but not really. Anything else I should know before I dive in and purchase one? Okay, so one of the most important elements of choosing a quality fleece is making sure that there are no like breaks in the yarn. So if an animal went through a point of stress in their lives, the physiology of the animal could be devoted more towards like healing or like not being stressed than producing quality fiber. So I think sometimes with like a pregnant ewe, if it were to give birth or experience some stress in its life, it might produce a break in the fiber. That could be at the very middle, it could be anywhere in the length of the fiber. Typically, you don't see fleeces with a break in them on the market. Shepherds will, or shepherdesses will kind of weed them out, and but sometimes you will. And I found a fleece I really, really wanted at Maryland one year, and I found a break in it, and I was just like, this is everything I want, except it has this break in it. And how I found that, and this is a very common technique, you'll see a lot of people doing it, you take very gingerly, and sometimes you'll even find the sample already found for you. And I do encourage you not to dig too deep into the fleece. You want to keep it intact, because the more intact the fleece is, the easier it is to lay out again in a whole piece. You want to take a sample from a good area, like some area that is like the cream of the crop piece of the fleece. And you want to take out that sample and you want to hold it tip to tip, and you want to spring it right next to your ear, so that if you hear any fibers break, you know whether there's a break in the fleece or not. It should be like boing, boing, boing. Like it should not have any crinkles or any kind of breaking sounds at all. You want to do a little snap test and know whether there's a break in the fiber. So that's number one, because that's sort of a deal breaker, because if your fiber has a break in it, it's going to be difficult to process. It's going to pill. It's not going to be the best fleece for you. What I'm looking for the most when I'm looking at all of the fleeces and I'm like, what am I here for? It's staple length. Staple length is everything. It is the moment. And I'm looking for the staple length. When I find it, I do my test. I find no breaks. That's great. I look at the color. If it's like if it's a fleece that's like very white or not, whatever, you know, you're either looking for white or you're looking for color, whatever, but you want to look for what can be referred to as canarying. It's this like yellowing of the fiber. Now, most white fleeces are yellow. They don't look white at all, and they will wash to be white. They will completely wash clean and look white again. But sometimes you get fleeces that have this staining to them that will not ever wash out no matter what. Parts of my light gray fleece did have some canarying in it, and it just kind of warmed the tone of the gray yarn in subtle areas where it looked kind of like, oh, like a little tiny bit of like a soft canary type of yellow. So it's not a deal breaker for me if there's canarying, but it's something I noticed, and it should be reflected in the price. Most fleeces on the market at a festival are going to be marked as coated or not coated. Coated fleeces are going to be much cleaner of vegetable matter, also known as VM, and I prefer a coated fleece. There is a downside to a coated fleece, and that is that it will have some felting of the tips, and that can be difficult to manage depending on the staple length or the intensity of the felting. Some felting can be simply combed out and easy to manage. Sometimes you physically want to cut it out, and I have no qualms about trimming the tips of my fleeces if the staple length is good. Some areas will be more felted than others on a fleece that's been coated. For instance, the neck area can have a lot more vegetable matter in it because the coat doesn't cover that area of the fleece, and it'll be a little bit more felted because that's where the fleece comes in more direct contact. But overall, I'm looking for a fleece that has a nice long staple, not a lot of vegetable matter or dirt, and not a lot of second cuts. Second cuts can ruin a really good quality fleece. You'll find them sometimes, well, you'll find them in any fleece you buy, but sometimes you'll bring home a fleece and you'll find entire sort of chunks here and there. I also am very conscious to remove second cuts prior to washing because they can get kind of jumbled up in with the rest of them and kind of felt a little bit more and just kind of be in the way. Usually at a festival, fleeces will be graded and they will have notes about whether second cuts are found or if there's this or that, so you can always reference that. I do find that most fleeces are graded very positively, so it's hard to tell what degree you're going to find this or that. You're going to find a little bit of everything most of the time. You might find a really well-priced fleece, like very affordable fleece, with lots of second cuts, or a lot of felting or a shorter staple length. And it's kind of up to you to decide whether you want to invest in a lesser quality fleece and spend less money, or if you want to spend more money on a higher quality fleece. Just like anything else, you know, you're going to pay for the quality, and some fleeces are priced not to sell. You will find fleeces for sale for like $400, and you know it's because they either want $400 for it, or they want you to see how great their fleece is. They want you to see their name on that bag, and they want you to buy all 49 other fleeces they have for sale because you're looking at how amazingly, awesomely white and perfect that fleece is with their farm's name representing it. So I would recommend, and I hope I'm not like opening myself up to too much competition. No, I'm kidding. But I would recommend, if your festival you're attending has a competition, you know, like best in breed, best in category type of thing happening annually, look at the farmers, the shepherds, the shepherdesses, people who are winning first, second, third place in any of the sheep showing or fleece competitions in years past. I'm sure you can probably find on the internet those who have won in one category or another of fleece competitions, and then look for their names when you are shopping for fleeces. I know that Peggy Howell is a name I recall from years past, who I want to say she breeds Cordale. So those are my suggestions, and all I can think of needing to know before diving in and buying a fleece. The very last question I have for today is, hi, I was curious about the brand of scale you mentioned in your latest podcast. Thank you for sharing your insights of spinning. That scale belonged to my husband in college. So I don't know what brand it is. I can actually go get it and find out for you, but I don't know that it would still be on the market. I would look for a scale that will give you up to 1/10 of a gram in measurement and go with that, because there's probably better scales out there on the market now. But I wouldn't let the size be a determining factor. What I tend to do is find a bowl that I put on the scale. I tear the scale so it's at 0 with the bowl on it, and then I will pack my wool or my yarn or whatever it is I'm measuring into the bowl. So that I'm able to fit high volume things on a very small scale. But look for a scale that gives you up to 1/10 of a gram, and I think you'll be in really good shape with that. So those are all the questions I have in recent weeks. If I missed your question, do reach out to me. I think that I've gotten to everyone in recent weeks. So I just want to thank you all so much for reaching out, letting me know what your questions are. If you have a question, feel free to leave it in the forum linked in the description box below. If you made it this far into this week's video, let me know in a comment below with what emoji will we do? We'll do the scales emoji, since we just mentioned the scale. All right, that's it for this week's episode of the Threadsman podcast. I guess before we go, I'll show you what I've been working on. Welcome to this week's garden tour. Our peach tree is in full bloom. I very heavily pruned this baby, and she's doing pretty good. I'm really excited to have peaches this summer. And our garlic patch is doing fine. I just planted some violas this morning, and there's a bunch of daffodils in bloom. I even hand cut the grass to clean up the edges a little bit. And what I've been most excited about is this gorgeous $10 Home Depot climbing rose that I planted last year. It's finally taking off. And we have a couple blueberry plants here that are doing well. This one is doing the best, and it's my favorite, so I'm glad to have that one. But of course you need more than one blueberry plant to cross-pollinate and produce fruit. So you can see it from here, but I have a third between those two cattle panels over there. And I have a few perennial flowers popping up. I put some nasturtiums in the ground, and we're going to see how they do in various areas of the garden this year. Over here are where I transplanted my nettles, and you're going to find nasturtiums everywhere in my garden right now because I love them so much. But this entire patch has really kind of just been planted out for the first time, established for the first time last year. And so some things died, some things didn't. And what thrived the most are these bleeding hearts. And these have just sprung up from the ground and they're already in bloom, which is really exciting. I think they're so pretty. I love the color and they really stand out from this very shaded area. So if you have an area in your garden that has a ton of shade, I would highly, highly, highly recommend some bleeding hearts. These I picked up from, I'll put it on the screen, I forget the name. I love this online plant store. They shipped so well. And this is a evergreen, sort of. I mean, it looks pretty bad. I'll probably cut this back soon, but it does have a bunch of new growth. This is a evergreen Solomon seal, and you can see it's coming back to life. I just don't want to cut it before I know it's really gonna take off. So part of me is wondering whether I should have planted it so close to the other plant, but I think that they're spaced well enough apart. I think that I'm going to move the dark heucheras to other areas of the yard because it's just so shaded over here. They really blend in with the mulch, like you can't even see them. I like the way that they look next to the bleeding hearts, but if you can't see it, it just doesn't even look like it's there. So I might move some of those to the front yard garden where I have a mulch down that's a little bit lighter than my compost. And this is sorrel, and this was planted by a bird, and I split to have two, so now I have one on each side of my blueberry bush. So loving the bloobs. This is a little horseradish plant that I put in the ground several years ago, and I will probably never eradicate from my garden. So we always have fresh horseradish. And the fig tree is figgin'. I did trim it and I stuck the end in the ground. I don't know if it took or not. I hesitate to try to yank it out, but it almost looks like there's some growth there. So maybe we'll get another little fig tree from the cutting. And the forsythia's in bloom. What's really doing great, as always, is the black raspberries. Love black raspberries. These really, really, really took over a spot in our garden that nothing really thrived in. And I have hostas coming back from winter hibernation underground. Is that another rat? No, that is some wool fiber. I do have a dead rat. I'm not going to try to show it to you, but I do have to pick it up. We have a healthy colony of feral cats that keep rats dead. They enter our yard, they are dead. So, trying not to show that on camera here, so I do need to grab that, but I have some little seedlings I tried to start out here. It's not going to get too cold in the future weeks, so I wanted to see how early I could put some seedlings out. But the yarrow is coming back. I have, I think, a black-eyed Susan just next to that, and there are plenty of raspberry canes sprouting from the ground. I'm gonna try to count them out. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, maybe 15 new canes. You can't really see it, but you see where all those leaves are a little bit bigger. I actually dug in our clay soil. We have this gutter, and it actually goes under that box over the concrete, and then buried under the soil, and then it comes out right where all of these canes are, and it stops. And I actually dug in the clay soil a little trench so that instead of water pooling right here, the water would travel across the bed and be a bit of a irrigation system for the garden. So underneath those leaves are a little, I don't know, 4-inch deep trench so that we would get better drainage in our clay soil. And I have some daffodils. Raspberries are starting to leaf out. And then this is a dye plant. I always forget the name of it. I wish I kept the tag in the ground, but it's coming back from the ground and I'm excited to see it reborn. Maybe we'll dye some wool this summer. And of course I have my hellebores. I love hellebores. I think they're so pretty. This one's about to flower. Should probably trim back the dead looking leaves, but I don't know. I hesitate. Maybe they would do better if I did. I wonder if you have grown hellebores, when you trim them back when it's most ideal. This one has a lot of flowers on it. So anyway, that is our mid-March garden tour. And I want to thank you all so much for watching. Oh, last thing, this is my new lilac tree in a large container, some creeping Jenny. And then this is my brand new, planted this in the fall, little rose bush. So I'm excited to have more flowers in the garden here. Yeah, oh, and strawberries. I don't know if I have any high expectations for the strawberries, but we have strawberry plants. So that is the garden tour. Thanks for watching. I think that I might just take 1 week off spinning again because I have so many knitting goals, and if I don't pause my spinning goals for a second, I'll never accomplish any knitting at all. In fact, all week I don't think I did more than 2 or 3 rows on the sweater sleeve here, which is not a lot. So in order to motivate me to get knitting again, I'm going to pause my spinning for 1 week. I'm going to finish this sweater, finish this pattern, have this pattern ready for testing. I will leave a link below to sign up to test this raglan sweater design. And you can check that out if you want to test knit this gorgeous thing. The cable motif is optional. You do not have to knit the cable motif, and you are welcome to modify. I will give many options for modification as well as yardage for modifications within the pattern. So if you want a top-down raglan sweater to fit you the way I love my top-down raglans to fit me, then consider testing and keep an eye out for the pattern available in future months, I would guess. If you are not wanting to test but maybe want to consider supporting me here on my channel, I don't often plug for any financial contribution. I just want you to enjoy the content I create here for free. And if you did want to support me in any way, I do have patterns for sale on Ravelry and on Payhip. I would much rather you get something like that in return. Some of you are so generous and support me with a Ko-fi or coffee once in a while, and I love that so much. But buy my patterns, because I want to give that gift to you in exchange of your support here on my channel. So thank you all so much. I'm so glad that you are here. It really means a lot to me to spend this time here on Sundays with a video premiere on my channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. If you want to find me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry and Instagram. You can find me over on TikTok as Taylor Knits. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and take care.